A murderer walked through that door the other day and sat down and talked with me. And I'm not gonna lie, it was really scary, but it taught me a huge lesson about prayer, ironically enough. Let's begin. So yes, a murderer, can I even say that? YouTube, please don't flag this video, but a bad person walked through my doors the other day. And y'all guys know I recently moved into the studio. It's like on my main street of my small little tiny town. And so people will often come by and they'll be like, what's going on over here? What are you doing in this random space? You've got, books and chalkboards and the word Bible nerd on your wall. Who are you, crazy person? And so this man walked in and he sat down and started talking to me, and I'm sitting there going, as he tells me that he is currently headed to the courthouse to be tried for murder. I was a little bit nervous. I was like, what have I done to myself here? And yet, he was really open to hear about ministry and what I do online and my heart, like why I would spend time studying the Bible, what I was reading, etc. And so while we're talking, as you can imagine, I'm like secretly in between words trying to pray and be like, okay, God, speak through me, like have your will be done, like help me to be a light, like whatever. I don't even know where he is spiritually, right? And I think a lot of times our prayer life is like that. Like we sit down with our prayer journal and we open it up and we're just like, I'm drinking my coffee and I'm reading the Bible and I have no idea what this means and I don't know what to do, so just speak through this, God. And that's what it is. It's just like word vomit, emotion vomit at God, right? Well, at least if your prayer journal is anything like mine, that's my default, is just to sit down and emotion vomit at God. And I'm not saying that God isn't pleased with my raw and realness. That's like my number one tip if you're prayer journaling or just praying and learning how to grow in your prayer life, is to be raw and real. And yet we know Matthew 6, Jesus taught us how to pray. And when he taught us how to pray, he gave us a structure, right? Open your Bible with me to Matthew 6. Now, context here, Jesus is talking to the Pharisees. They had been taught and learned that like, if you are a good, holy person, you will pray openly for other people to see. Maybe they thought it would convict other people to be more holy. I don't know. But he says, when you pray, don't be like a hypocrite. What? Doing a holy act can lead you to be like a hypocrite? What? He says, for they love to stand and pray in the synagogues and the street corners, so they like to pray openly, but that they might be seen by others. That is their reward. That's their reward, is what Jesus says. But when you pray, go into your room, shut your door, and pray to your Father who is in secret. And I think a lot of us don't really struggle with that today because it is taboo to pray super openly. But he says this, when you pray, don't heap up empty phrases as the Gentiles do. Is that what I do when I'm just like throwing all of my thoughts at Jesus? I don't know. I think sometimes I feel like I am. For they think that they will be heard for their many words. Do I slightly feel a little bit more holy when I write 4 pages in my prayer journal for the day rather than just 1? If I'm gonna be honest with you and me, yeah, I do feel a little bit more holy with the more words that I put in my prayer journal. And Jesus calls me out here in Matthew 7, part B, and he says, yo, Faith, that makes you no more holy. That does nothing. It's a waste of ink and space and time. Make your words meaningful. Okay, so how do I do that? He gives us this outline. Our Father in heaven, holy is your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. If you're anything like me and you were raised in the church, this is gonna sound really familiar, if not too familiar. If you're anything like me, these words are falling flat already and we're like 4 lines in. So I'm gonna start over again really quick and I want you to dial in. Let's overanalyze every single one of these words. Our Father in heaven. So Jesus starts out this structure of how to pray with opening up a relationship between God and man. And remember, Jesus is God. He's 100% God, he's 100% man. He understands our desire and our distance between God, and he breaks that barrier with the first words, our Father in heaven. We are here, lowly earth. You are in heaven, but you are our Father. Holy is your name. I want you to think of the I am statements of Jesus. The I am, the Yahweh-ness of God. Remember, the Jews understood the name Yahweh to be too holy to even say. Sometimes you'll see it abbreviated YHWH. Can you imagine like your personal name or my personal name being too holy to even write or say? No, because he is too great, right? Your kingdom come. So kingship, rule, reign. Your kingdom is coming. Your will is being done on earth as in heaven. So there's this distance once again, but it's all under the rule and reign of God's kingdom, all under the rule and reign of his kingship. And it's the holy in the earthly. Beautiful stuff. Give us this day our daily bread. This is a request. And forgive us of our debts. Another request, another plea for something that we cannot earn, we cannot muster up. As we also forgive our our debtors. And this is holding ourselves accountable. May I also forgive other people as you have forgiven me. Now remember, Jesus is saying this to the disciples before the cross. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. This is not to say that we won't face temptation, but it's that he's delivering us from that temptation, fighting sin in and outside of me. And then, if you've memorized this prayer in your own tradition, or if you say this every Sunday, like a tradition like mine, for thou is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever, is something that we've added on kind of a church tradition. And I feel like that also comes from a benediction in the Bible somewhere. The point is, this is a structure that Jesus gave us for our prayers. And I'm not saying, again, that my in the moment praying to God was not sufficient or good or holy, but I noticed in that moment of panic that my prayers were all over the place. And I noticed in that moment that there was nothing I could do but to plead with the Lord to intersect. And there was in my mind, if I'm going to be completely honest with you guys, this I'm better, I'm the holy one in the conversation kind of attitude in my heart in my prayers. But guess what happened? As I'm standing there talking to this man who just walked in, told me that he's going to trial for murdering somebody, he begins to tell me that he is a believer of sorts, aware of Jesus. And so I realized that I have a moment to evangelize. I realized that there's a door here for me to show him truth and speak truth into his life. And so I'm like, Mr. Scary Man, how can I pray for you? That seems like the good Christian thing to do in this moment. That seems like what a holy person would do. That's kind of all I know to do in this moment. How can I pray for you? And he turns to me and he says, what are you going to pray for? And I was like, wait, oh, what? I thought I maybe heard him wrong. I was like, can I pray for you? And he's like, what are you going to pray for, Faith? That it goes well, for grace, for truth. Because remember, I'm like viewing this as, I know Jesus better than you. Let me speak truth into the moment. Kind of honestly being a little Pharisee in the moment, right? And he says, you didn't even ask what I need prayer for. And I got to tell you, right there in the moment, my heart drops. And I realize that I have failed in the moment because I'm being a Pharisee, like we just read about in Matthew 6, when Jesus is like, don't be heretical. Don't pray out in the public. Turns out I kind of was doing exactly that. I had made it about, let me bless you with my prayers, instead of coming before him and hearing how his heart is, where he truly needs prayer. And so here I am trying to bless somebody, and he calls me out in my own theology of prayer. You see, I think we do this a lot. I think we sit down to pray and we don't really know what we're praying about. And we're not really praying for hearts. We're not really praying for God to rule and reign and have his authority in our lives. We're kind of trying to control this genie in our brains. And we think, God, you need to answer my prayers. You've said that you listen. You said that you're going to hear me. Just do this, that, and then we'll be good. Cool? Okay, here's your to-do list, God. Bye. Peace. Thanks. And when this man came and told me, you don't even know what I need prayer for, he made me realize that I had been viewing prayer completely wrong. Y'all know I make a lot of videos here on prayer journaling and how to pray, and I really emphasize like being honest and real before God, because that's like the biggest lesson I've ever learned in my prayer life, is just being real and honest before God. But I think there's a line. I think I'm learning that I was wrong. I think there's a line to where if we are too us-centered, like so focused on being real and honest and self-serving before God in our prayer journals, that is self-worship. It's not gonna be what prayer, a posture of prayer really is. Posture of prayer is surrender. A posture of prayer is like, you are God and I am not. Save us, Lord. That is the real honest posture of prayer. Now, David gives us a really good example in the Psalms of being honest and real before God, feeling all the feels, and yet still falling in surrender and falling in worship. So let's move to my desk. We'll look through the scriptures together. I don't know what Psalm would be the best example of this, to be completely honest with you guys. I didn't plan this video very well. I opened up to Psalm 102. Flip there with me. So in Psalm 102, it opens up with just pleading for the Lord to hear, to answer. Hear my prayer, Lord. Let my cry become before you. Incline your ear to me. We all know that feeling, right? But then here he comes before the Lord in this awareness of sin and complaint and just like all the emotions. This is what I'm talking about when I talk about self-serving prayer. Just like, here is where I am. And God doesn't view it as negatively as I'm kind of viewing it in this video. Like, God knows us. He already knows we're feeling this way. And sometimes it really does help just to lay it out before God. But notice that this isn't where the prayer ends. It doesn't end there. It keeps going. And what does it do? He reminds himself of who God is and his sovereignty. But you, O Lord, are enthroned forever. You are remembered. You will arise. You have an appointed time. The nations fear you. The kings of the earth fear you. And then he petitions. Do you see this section here? Verses 23 and 24. For old you laid the foundation of the earth, and the heavens are the work of your hands. You will remain. They will wear it like a garment, but you are the same. Your years have no end. So again, I know there's probably many other Psalms that are a better example of this, but really all throughout the Psalms, over and over again, we see that David is completely honest with God, but also he is completely worshipful of God. He is so honest with himself about his estate that he can't help but turn to God and worship in this surrendered prayer. Where am I going with all this? The other day when this man walked through my doors of my studio, sharing his testimony of what he was about to go on trial for, me asking if I could pray for him and him challenging me, you don't even know what I need prayer for. It really humbled me in the way that I view prayer. Prayer is a tool, but it's not a self-serving tool. Prayer is one of the best evangelism tools and gifts we can share, but it should never be to assert authority or self-worship or anything like that. Rather, it should be, what do you feel like you need prayer for? And I'm so grateful for this man and that he stopped by and he really made me reanalyze how I've been viewing prayer. And I'm just gonna be honest with you guys. I think God is bigger than my messed up prayer journals, than my self-serving prayers. I think God will always be bigger, better than my faults, than my sin. But my desire is to always be growing in my prayer life. I want to know the full blessedness of a strong biblical prayer life because I know there is no stronger Christian walk than one that is empowered by a biblical grounding in prayer. And if I am taking every step of my life, physical, literal, and spiritual, grounded in prayer, not self-serving prayers, not self-worshiping prayers, but surrendered, worshipful prayers of God, then I'm gonna be a lot less likely to live in the selfish, sinful tendencies by which my sinful nature wants to lead me. So if you want to hear more about being honest and real before the Lord, I think that's kind of like one of the first lessons we have to learn in our prayer journal. So if you haven't seen this video yet, go check this out or maybe rewatch it and really challenge yourself of like, am I being raw and honest with the Lord? And that will help complement this video because I think it's two-sided. Or if you would like to support this ministry, click this link here. And I will see you guys in this video.